Hello and welcome to Retro Vehicles and Machinery. My name's Richard and today we're looking at a Discovery 1. It's an early 200 TDI and I've got it in, I recommissioned it for probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, after it had spent about 20 years laid up in a garage locally. And the chap's been using it and I've got it in for a service, an MOT and a check over this week. And fortunately she requires a bit of welding. Good old Discovery issue here. She is still on the original boot floor, which is not bad considering it was made in 1990. But yes, I've got a boot floor to put in this one, as it's quite ripe. So what we'll do is have a look at stripping this interior out. I've got the boot floor in the workshop. Don't have these side panels, but I think they're okay when I last checked it. I don't have much hope that these screws are going to come undone, holding the little hatch down for the fuel sender, but I have an impact driver and a hammer, so I have just wire wheeled the tops of the screws off. We'll see. Start with this nice looking one. Just big self-tapping screws. I think when I've done them in the past I've put them in with tech screws. That's taken that access plate off. I think that's the only part you have to reuse. I'll have a look at down here. Tidy this out and grease these fuel pipes up. They're looking a bit rusty. That's another bit done. So I've run the grinder all around the edges of the boot floor, put the front brace and the rear brace. The middle one I'm keeping because that sits on the chassis. What I have done in the past is put a piece of box section across. What I'm doing today, I'm going to try and retain this centre brace because it looks in quite good nick. So I'm just drilling the spot weld so I can pop it off and see how it is. If it is knackered, I'll weld some boxes. It's the last spot weld. Cool. That should relieve us of the boot floor. The very rotten boot floor from the Landy. Moment of truth. Boot floor straight in the scrap trailer. So I've retained this cross member. I'm going to clean that one up. I retain that front one as well. It looks a bit crispy, but we'll have a knock round and clean it up and see what it's like afterwards. That wasn't, that bolts through the seat belts, as does that one. Those are fine, so those should bolt back up. I will have to put a lip on these corner pieces because these should have a lip that comes out for the boot floor to sit on, but I've got some steel I can use that with, and I will clean the top of the fuel tank up. So now be a good time as any to preserve the chassis a bit with a bit of paint and wax oil. Also, it's a long-winded way to check your top shocker bushes, but they're knackered. So whilst we're there, I'm gonna take them off the scrap disco in the corner because that's got some newish ones on it over there. They can go on this truck. But also have a look at draining the water trap now. Now it's nice and easy to get to. This side, I think this lip will clean up. We'll make something good out of it anyway. But yeah, that's it so far. So I've got my favourite rust finding hammer. Can have a tap round, see what's solid and what's not. looks good. This rear lip we've got is good. These sides obviously want some work. Solid as well. Thought I was going to have to box section him. He's actually pretty good. There's a lot of crap coming off it, but it's solid. Well, I've just given that a bit of a blow off with the airline, and it's looking a lot better now. I do need to trim this lip back and weld a step on there for it to go to. But yeah, the crossmember, the front and that rear seems to be okay. So I will put a new one in here, run a piece of plate or something across there. We'll see what we've got. I think before I used a bit of 20x50 or 25x50 rectangle on my off-roader, but I'll have a look at that. But that's where we're at the moment. What I'm doing here is drilling all the old spot welds out that held the boot floor in, just to see what sort of structure I have left that's original. That rear panel is good, that will go again. These side panels are a bit holy and a bit rotten on the lip. So what I'm going to do is to cut these off and weld a new lip in here, because the majority of that panel that goes round and under the little chair and round the wheel arch tub is pretty good. I have changed those in the past, but that's a whole new world of stripping the truck down. This front panel, the remainder of the boot floor, the front lip is good. I'm just going to drill through the spot welds there, take that part of the old boot floor off, and unfortunately with this passenger side too, it doesn't look brilliant. I have knocked a lot of rot out of it. I think with some rust treater on there, I can cut it back, rust treat the top bit. And I think I can get away with welding a new lip on for the boot floor to sit in too. But yeah, certainly the lip, the edge is gone. Again, that panel's not too bad under the seat there. Usually all that's gone. And that front bit's not too bad, but we'll see when I drill the spot welds out on this front section here. Over the top of this panel here to just show me all the little spot welds. So there's one here. One here. They're roughly 1 inch to 2 inches apart. So I've cut out the little offending area here that was a bit rotten and welded in a piece with a 90 on it. And then what I'm using to repair the seam that the boot floor is going to sit into is a bit of flat bar. So it's a nice profile, it's about 2mm thick or so it's not going to rot through, and it'll be a good, tie a good bit of strength up into the rear of the disco here. So I've cut that piece to go there. I'm just welding that in so we've got a frame for the boot floor to sit into next. That's going bit by bit. These are the original mounts there, and they're nice and solid. The same with this one back here, and this section here isn't too bad either, so I've left that. Stitch those in and get the piece done from the front there onwards, and then yeah, we'll keep it going. So he's stitched in quite nicely there. There's well in there. I'll move on to the next little bit there next, and then the bit across the front. So I've just sprayed up some of the welded bits and pieces with some primer. So that's all looking good. I've got my boot floor ready. I've marked everywhere up where all my spot welds need to go. So that's the floor thrown in there. It's a little bit of work that I've drawn where I need to drill the spot welds, or the holes for the plug welds. That should make a good job. Nice and solid again in there. So that's all the holes drilled for the plug welds, and all of them prepped each side. Just gone over it with the finger sander, as it were. Just tidied them up so they're ready to weld in. Now I'm going to mark up. I'll put the floor loosely in the disco, and I'll mark up where we need to just clean the spots here for it to take when I weld it. I have marked every little bit where the spot welds are going to go now on the framework, so I'm just going to clean them up with the sander, and then we can have a look at welding it in. Right, a couple more to go, and then she's done. She's all spotted in, cross members in. I just think there is just, yeah, 4 or 5 along here. Yeah, along the bottom edge here, the front edge. And that is the last of the welding done. So the boot floor is in. All I've got to do is put some seam sealer on it around the edges and seal it up underneath, put some stone chip, shuts and whatever on it, and put some wax rule on around the chassis. I need to bolt the 2 seatbelt brackets through and obviously put some paint on it, but that's so good. I'm happy with that. So I just finished it off this morning with a bead of seam sealant around the edges of the boot floor where it goes in. It's not the neatest job in the world, but it's okay. I've just smoothed it down. I've prepped the boot floor with a bit of Scotch pad, and I'm going to put some paint on it. I found some spire clips, so they're going in. I'll put a bit of wax oil on these fuel pipes here, and then I'm going to get the paint in the gun and put some etch primer. I'll mask it up around the edges, bang some etch primer on it and stick a bit of paint on the top, and then that's looking pretty good then. That's got a lick of paint on it now. That's 2 coats of etch primer that's had. Set that to go off. So I've just used the body shuts and shuts all of the new boot floor up. I don't know if you can see all of that. I've got I've sprayed it over the top of the tank best I can. And sprayed all around the seams and all where it's been welded. Got up there, look. Got as much. I emptied a whole litre can of it. Just gone sort of mad with it all over the floor. So it's got well protected up underneath now. So that should bode well for the underside of the truck anyway. Midway through putting an exhaust on it too. But yeah, I've got the shuts absolutely everywhere. Got it all up round the seams there. So yeah, I'm happy with that. That should stop any further rot ingress on the boot floor. So the etch primer's going off. I think it's touch dry now. Oh yeah, the etch primer's gone off lovely. That's giving it a nice tough anti-rust surface. Ooh, if that focuses. So I've still got to bolt up the brackets for the rear seat belts and put the bungs back in these holes here. But I'll put a coat of some sort of paint on the top. I'm just looking through to see what I've got in the workshop in stock. Haven't got any Discovery red, but I might have some chassis black. Mix that up in the gun with some thinners and give it a coat of chassis black on the top. Then at least it'll have a tough finish on the top side of things too. So I fitted the seatbelt clamps back down, and I've loosely put that down. The paint is still a little bit tacky, so I'm just leaving it to go off properly. I will put some bolts in that centre hatch, but that's looking pretty good. It's come up really good. And then tomorrow, if it's dry by then, I'll reassemble the interior. I've also, whilst I've had it here, done the rear shockers on it, because the shocks, as you saw in the video, were knackered. I ended up putting 2 new shockers on it and putting a bit of wax all around the chassis and boot floor on top. Underneath, I've done a pair of shockers on the back, and I've also put the exhaust rear section off the 300. I had to cut it and weld a flange back onto it so it would bolt up, because the back box had rotted off before. And I've also put bumper off the scrap one on this one, as the original 200 bumper was rotten through. Not wired the lights up, and I need a end cap as this one's a bit damaged, but it just tidies the back end up when that's all cleaned up. That'll look really good. So yes, the rear exhaust section was this lovely piece here. It was gone, and the back box had rotted off too. So all in all, we've made an alright truck out of it. So that's this Disco all done and finished now. I got it MOT'd today. I clipped all the seatbelts back in and lifted the back seats up, and yeah, took it over for a test, and it passed, flying colours, which is good. So yeah, the customer stripped the carpet and that out so he can put that back in when it's back at his place. So that is another vehicle done, ready to go.